Headline news, I'm Jane Akery. A 44-hour odyssey has ended for the passengers aboard the hijacked luxury liner Achille Lauro. The 4 Palestinian pirates who took over the ship are now reportedly in custody in Egypt. But the trip ended tragically for American Leon Klinghoffer, who was killed by the hijackers. The U.S. wants the hijackers brought to justice.
While we welcome the release of the passengers and crew of the Achille Lauro, we are saddened and outraged at this brutal killing of an innocent American, the second such terrorist murder in 3 months. We're particularly distressed that there has been no announcement yet that those responsible will be turned over to the appropriate authority for prosecution and punishment.
Egypt is now under pressure to hand down some sort of punishment to the ship's hijackers. White House Press Secretary Larry Speakes condemned their killing of an American, and he says they must not be allowed to leave Egypt. U.S. Ambassador to Egypt, Nicholas Valotis, had strong words for the fate of the hijackers.
I want you to call the foreign minister, tell him what we've learned, tell him the circumstances, tell him that in view of this fact, and the fact that we, and presumably they, did not have the facts, we insist that they prosecute them as sons of bitches.
Jubilation quickly turned to grief as the family of Leon Klinghoffer heard the news of his death. Charles Feldman has this report on relatives' reactions.
It was a roller coaster day for the children and son-in-law of Leon and Marilyn Klinghoffer. At first, they came down from their parents' Manhattan apartment to excitedly tell reporters that the State Department had called to say it was all over. The terrorists were off the ship. And the 2 Klinghoffer daughters looked forward, they said, to being reunited with their mother and father.
Let the party begin. We're just so excited. And now what we really want to do is we want to speak to our parents and hear from them that, yes, indeed, they're well and feeling fine. And then, of course, we want to see them as soon as possible.
But shortly thereafter, things took a tragic turn, with conflicting reports that 69-year-old Leon Klinghoffer had been killed by the terrorists, his body thrown into the sea. But there was no U.S. confirmation. After agonizing hours, a family spokesperson met the press to say that they had again heard from the State Department. This time, the message was that Leon Klinghoffer was indeed dead.
We have confirmation from the State Department as to the death of Leon Klinghoffer.
Leon Klinghoffer was confined to a wheelchair, the after effects of several strokes he suffered in recent years. His wife, Marilyn, is alive, according to the family spokesperson. This was to have been a dream vacation for the couple. The doorman at the New York apartment said he spoke with the couple the day they left on their ill-fated journey.
The day that they left, I was on. I packed the luggage into the car, put his wheelchair, and he seems to be happy. The wife said goodbye to her daughters. She had tears in her eyes that day. And when she got into the car, I closed the door, and she looked at me. She says, "Israel, take care of my babies."
No memorial services have yet been announced.
That was it.
The hijackers riding away in this tugboat reportedly surrendered on 3 conditions. PLO officials say that one involves a promise that Egypt would try to arrange talks with Israel and the U.S. on the release of Palestinian prisoners. The 2 other conditions, guarantees that the hijackers would not be tried and would not be handed over to the PLO. Italian Prime Minister Bettino Craxi has sent President Reagan his condolences over the murder of Klinghoffer. Anthony Collins reports that news of the death came as a surprise to Italian officials.
Earlier in the day, things were going well. The hostages were about to be freed, and Italian Premier Bettino Craxi was upbeat. But later at a press conference, he had bad news. Craxi said one American hostage apparently had been killed and the body thrown overboard. This was sometime before the hijackers left the ship. Craxi said only the man's passport had been found. This was how Italian leader Craxi got the news, in a radio-telephone conversation in Italian with the ship's captain, Gerardo De Rosa. The captain said, "One passenger is missing." Craxi, has he disappeared or has he been killed? The captain, no one saw anyone killed. For us, at this moment, he is missing. The captain later said the hijackers had rampaged through the ship firing machine guns. He said they herded passengers and crew into the dining room. The captain said they were well behaved toward Italians, but other passengers were treated not so well. Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat won praise from Italy for mediating. The man who acted as go-between for Craxi and Arafat, PLO envoy Fouad al-Bitar, told CNN why the PLO helped free the hostages.
To try to avoid a massacre for the people who are on board of this ship, and in the same time to avoid any damage of our reputation.
Al-Bitar denied that the Palestinian hijackers had acted on behalf of any PLO faction. In Naples, relatives of the ship's crew were relieved to hear the hijack was over after the strain of long hours of waiting. The relief was especially evident in the case of one woman, Giuliana De Rosa. She is the captain's wife.
The news of the missing American has changed Italy's position. At first, Rome agreed with Egypt's decision to offer the hijackers free passage abroad. But now Italy is demanding they be extradited here in hopes they can be brought to justice.